is the Korg Volca Bass. Now, it's called the bass, but you know, it's not just limited to bass, which we'll see shortly. Okay, first, I'm going to run this like an analog synthesizer. Let's be clear. This is an analog synthesizer. In fact, the filter is apparently the same filter used in the Mini Korg 700S, which makes it a very cool analog synthesizer, especially for the price. Let's start off with the oscillator. I'm going to start off with oscillator 1, VCO 1 as it's marked. Let's listen. That is set to a sawtooth wave. Okay, so there's your very low sawtooth wave. It can actually go lower. Let's check the octave knob. Now this is a free turning knob, but it does have sections, like as if it would click between settings, but it doesn't click, it just turns. So right now we are in octave 2. Let's turn it to octave 1. That's very deep. Octave 2. Still bass. Octave 3. So you get kind of into a treble range, so you could do some treble stuff. Okay, I'm just kidding. It goes higher than that. Here's octave 4. Octave 5. And octave 6. So yeah, this isn't just bass. It's bass because it has a good bass, but it is full range. It's a full range analog mono synth. Kind of. It's actually also polyphonic in a way that we'll get to. But yeah, so they call it the Volca Bass, but this is a full range analog synthesizer right here. For the price that it is, that's amazing. Okay, let's put it in a bass range. We'll pretend that it's just a bass synthesizer for a while. So that is the oscillator. That is the sawtooth wave. We can switch to a square wave by pushing the function button and making a choice right here where we see VCO wave and then have the different waveforms. If the light is on, it's the second one, the square wave. Right now we're VCO 1 and we're on the sawtooth wave. We'll switch it to square. We'll go to octave 3, octave 4, octave 5, if you can't tell, there isn't portamento on here. There is basically, if you connect the notes, there will be portamento. If you don't connect the notes, there will not be portamento. It makes it really easy. Octave 6. So yeah, those are your two waveforms in each of the oscillators. We'll get to the other oscillators in a moment. So you have the octave. This octave setting is for all of the oscillators, but each individual oscillator has its own tuning setup. So this is oscillator 1. It says pitch 1. Now watch over here what happens. I'm starting to tune it. See these numbers with C? Those are cents. So basically the pitch knob here starts off modifying the tuning of the pitch. So it's a fine tune at first. But then once you get to 100 cents, it turns into notes. So we've just changed the pitch by a whole step. And you can go up half steps. Here, listen. Okay, we're on off. So at first you have a fine tune, and then you have a coarse note tune. So you can tune it to 12 different notes up an octave, and you can go down 12 different notes down an octave. So it's like a 2-octave pitch knob that also allows for fine tuning up a whole step and down a whole step. Or a half. Is that a whole step or a half? Yeah, it's a whole step, I think. Yeah. So basically you have a 2-octave range here with the ability to fine tune in the middle. Fine tuning is awesome for when you have multiple oscillators going, which I'll show you in a moment. But this pitch knob is a really innovative way of allowing you to either detune or choose a different note. And you can use that to transpose when you are programming it, actually, but we'll get to that. So each of the 3 oscillators, yes, it's a 3-oscillator analog monosynth, a 3-oscillator analog full range monosynth with a classic filter. So that's kind of unbelievably amazing. I'm going to switch this back to Sawtooth. And then we're going to talk about the unique oscillator grouping that exists in this synth. Right now, I have it set over here. You can see there's 3 squares. That means that it is currently operating in a fashion where each oscillator is individual and is played, when selected, it's the only oscillator playing. So we're listening to VCO 1. Here's VCO 2. Sounds just like VCO 1, so let's put it up an octave so we can tell the difference. And of course, we have the ability to change the waveform of oscillator 2 if we want to. We can just immediately turn it to a square. This allows you to have different voices set when you're in live performance. You can be like, okay, this is for, the first part of the song, it's this. And then later it's going to be in the second part, in the chorus. So you can make sort of preset selections. They're somewhat limited. Basically, the only difference that you're going to have is waveform and octave setting. For each of these, quote, presets, the differences are going to be waveform setting and, pitch. But that's enough, depending on the situation. And then you can make different alterations in real time. Here's VCO 3. I think it is default set to square. It starts off as square, and then you can set it to Sawtooth if that is your desire. So those are the individual choices. Now, here's the thing. There is a really cool thing that happens when you're actually recording in this setting. They are not individual oscillators that can only be played one at a time. When you're recording, this means you can actually play each of them individually as 3 different tracks, but we'll get to that. So that's super frickin' cool. But let's change the VCO grouping to this second one, which means VCO 1 and 2 are ganged together. That means when VCO 1 or 2 are selected, they're going to be playing at the same time. So you have basically a 2-oscillator monosynth right now. So here's where you can hear where the scent setting or the fine tuning makes a difference. Now I want you to take a moment and listen to the bass in that. That's a really great sound, and it's detuned. So, think of the analog monosynths that are single oscillator that you can't afford right now. And then look right here to this incredibly inexpensive but great sounding, just oscillators alone. We haven't even gotten to the filter. Really amazing. And then you have the option, like we did when we had the other setting, VCO 3s on its own. And you can set it to whatever setting you really. And then when you choose VCO1 or VCO2, it'll give you VCO plus VCO1 plus VCO2. And don't forget, you can also tune this up like. If we go up into different octaves. And you can tune that, doesn't have to be to the prog setting. So yeah, you have the ability in this setting, which is VCO 1 and 2 ganged and VCO 3 by itself, to have a sort of either in live performance, a preset setting where you have a 2 oscillator monosynth and a 1 oscillator monosynth that have whatever differences you decide with the pitch and waveform. Or when you're recording, that means you can record these as 2 different tracks, VCO 1 plus 2 as its own track and VCO 3 as its own track. So that's really cool. Let's listen to everything gang together all at once. Now we are into 3 oscillator monosynth mode. All 3 oscillators are playing at the same time, and they act as one track in recording as well. That sounds cool, but let's add a little bit of variety here. That is with oscillator 2 slightly detuned. Let's take oscillator 3 up an octave. Let's take oscillator 1 down an octave. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to want to reiterate through this whole thing. Single. Here's a 3 oscillator monosynth, 3 oscillator analog monosynth with detunable oscillators with analog sound. I mean, holy cow, for this price, are you serious? And let's face it, there is a MIDI in here. So like if you're not into this, this fingerboard, and you should be, you have the ability to, MIDI in and play this thing. So all of a sudden you've got three voice analog monosynth at your beck and call in whatever way you want it to be. It's amazing. Okay, so those are the oscillators we're talking